Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm here today to finish up the first week of two talking about who's Jesus. And, you know, for me, Jesus is more than a supernatural being. He was a real human being. I wish I'd have been around in the time he was physically walking on the earth. Seemed like a pretty neat guy. Seemed like the kind of guy that you want to hang around with. Not only was he wise, not only was he giver of miraculous things, he was just a real friendly person who cared about others. And so this passage today talks about that in a real and important way. From John 15, beginning with verse 10, we read these words. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I've told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I've loved you. There's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And you are my friend if you do what I command you. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. But now you are my friends. And since I've told you everything that God told me, you didn't choose me. I chose you. Well, in this passage, there are a number of items that talk about who Jesus is. Let's start with the first one. He said, when you do God's commandments, his commandments, you remain in his love. Well, we demonstrate our commitment to the Lord by how we follow his commandments. Now, I'm not talking about being a rule follower and being one of those who cozy up to the teacher because you're always trying to smile and be the best rule person in the world. I'm talking about someone who simply does what Jesus did. Try to live your life. And he did. We tried to live your life the way God wants you to. It's really that simple. I know it gets complicated in everyday life and all the things that happen, but it really is that simple. Try to live your life the way that God would want you to. So he says here, if you follow my commandments and obey me and remain in my love, I've told you these things that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. Second point is, Jesus wants you to be filled with joy. And not some joy you can conjure up, but his supernatural, miraculous, all over, impossible to understand joy. So the immediate question comes here is, are you experiencing joy in your life? If you are, fantastic. If you're not, well, maybe this is the reason. But the point is that what God wants is not misery, not pain, not suffering. Yes, those things happen. We live in a sinful world, and sin abounds in a sinful world. But God's purpose is for you to have joy. Jesus' joy, the joy he experienced when he talked to people, when he healed people, when he laughed with children, that kind of joy that just wells up out of the soul and meets everybody that you meet. And he goes on to say here that there's no greater love than one to lay down his life for his friends. And that's true. There's no greater love than giving of your life for someone else. It happens a lot. I always wondered if I were in that situation, would I do that? And the answer is I don't know because I've never been in that situation, but I sure hope I would. No greater love, he says, greater than any mommy and kid, daddy and mommy, grandpa and grandkid, mom and dad. It's the greatest love in the world to be willing to do that if that comes up, if that happens. So then he says, and here comes the real big point here. You are my friends if you do whatever I command. I no longer call you slaves. You are now my friends, since I have told you everything that the Lord has given and told to me. That's a powerful thought. Jesus, the supernatural being that we've talked about, the Son of God that we've talked about, the worker of miracles that we'll talk about. Jesus wants to call you friend, and he wants you to call him friend. A friend is an intimate relationship with someone else based on some kind of mutual guarantee of caring and compassion and helpfulness towards that person. It's a guarantee. It won't be broken. And Jesus is offering that to you and to me. A guarantee to have a relationship that is close and helpful and loving and kind. Now, I don't know about you, but I think those kinds of relationships are hard to find. Oh, there. Some people have bunches of friends. Others don't. I've read in national studies that if you are fortunate enough to have 3 or 4 or 5 really good friends in your lifetime, then you're doing much better than average. Apparently, a lot of people don't have close friends. Now, maybe it's because of where I live and the interconnectedness of people in the community. That seems a little far-fetched here in Springs, but it's not so far-fetched in the urban places where most people live. It's not so far-fetched for newcomers who come in and maybe don't have an opportunity to break into the old network of things. But here Jesus says, I want to call you my friend. And you will be interconnected with the eternal being by doing what he says. It really is that simple, folks. All you have to do is live your life the way Jesus would want you to. How do you know what that is? Well, read the Sermon on the Mount, chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew, and it'll be abundantly clear. All you have to do, it doesn't sound simple, doesn't it? All you have to do is put your hand in the hand of the Master and walk with life, through life together. Well, you think about it. You got the weekend to work on it. I'll be back Monday with some other ideas. And in the meantime, if you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your needs. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. God bless you. I'll be back on Monday.